Good morning and welcome to another episode of The Hunt. I'm sorry, good afternoon. I should know the time difference by now. For those tuning in, this is our weekly series dedicated towards helping hiring managers and candidates navigate the insane, wild, crazy world of recruiting. For those tuning in for the first time after 15 or 16 episodes, I am Kevin Roth, Director of Recruiting at Advice Personnel. We are a recruitment agency serving the New York market and now pretty much the entire country. For over 35 years. And today, very special guest for those who are sick of hearing me talk for 20 minutes straight. We have the amazing real estate guru, Alexis Bogen, 18-year veteran in leasing and brokerage, real estate savant, and now the head of our real estate recruiting operation at Advice. Alexis, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Of course. How's it feel to be on?
Feels good.
Good?
Feels good.
And Alexis is joining us from her brand new apartment. She is one of many who have found a nice transition to a more spacious area now in Long Beach. Perfect time for the winter.
Yeah, definitely a good home office, some winter beach activities in my future, and it's just nice to have a lot of space.
All right. Well, I'm glad things are working out. I know we got to make it out there eventually for a work event, but for those tuning in again, if you haven't seen the show before, this is a show that we're in the recruiting industry. Alexis and I, specialize in helping people land jobs, helping companies find talent. So we have a ton of knowledge that we like to share in situations we see, scenarios that we help navigate around, and we brought this show each week to really help you face different topics that you might encounter while searching for a position. And today, with Alexis being on, having, again, 18 years in real estate leasing, management, brokerage, and another several years now on the recruiting side, we thought what better opportunity to speak about the state of the real estate hiring market. And hopefully, those that are watching, this is meant to be an interactive show. Chime in with your questions. You can use the comment box throughout the show. Let us know where you're coming in from. But more importantly, let us know if you're battling with situations. You're looking for a job. You're trying to find talent. You're not sure what to expect in real estate because of everything you're hearing. Use that comment box throughout the show and make sure you're interacting with us as much as possible. But without further ado, again, today we want to talk a little bit about the state of the real estate market. That was the best pun I could come up with. In using state and real estate, I was thinking for days on how to come up with a better idea. I probably should have asked you. But all I hear about, Alexis, is that New York City's done. Yeah, New York's done. Everyone's moving to Denver or they're moving to Austin. There's no one going to be in New York anymore. I see pictures of lines out the U-Haul stores and everyone's getting into moving trucks. And the city's done. No one can pay rent. Buildings are closing down, commercial office is gone, and New York City real estate is done. So for those people who are out there listening to this, who are freaking out now that I said this, or who have been freaking out over the last couple of weeks because they're either trying to hire in real estate or they're trying to recruit, I want to first cover the reality of it. So from what you've seen through COVID and the resulting factors, what are your general observations about where we are now in terms of the real estate industry as a whole?
Hey, first of all, we're in New York, okay? In New York, real estate is something that will never be done. I experienced real estate post 9/11, 2008, and now during the pandemic. It's never going to be done. Was there a lull? Sure. Were there people really afraid of the unknown and didn't know what was going to happen, so they decided to get up and get out? Absolutely, but it's New York, and we're New York for a reason. The pandemic, for my team, actually made us busier than ever before. Wow. There was a 6-week lull and a pause where nobody really knew what was going on. It was the beginning of the pandemic, and everyone was really just trying to figure out what their companies were going to look like and what work culture in general was going to look like. Once that was established and made like a more comfortable thing for the people, the job market picked up again, at least from what I saw. A lot of property operations, a lot of on-site leasing, even the accounting and finance side of real estate. It really never slowed down outside of that 6-week window.
So you've actually seen certain improvement or activity in real estate here in New York. What are you noticing? A lot of times, at least in my world, and more of the accounting and finance world, and working with a lot of startups, we notice that pandemics or recessions, they don't necessarily crush an industry. What they do is change the way an industry is looked at from hiring. Certain skills become in demand. What have you noticed as a result of the last 6, 7 months? What trends are you seeing in terms of job seeking? Are you seeing any common themes as to why people are looking outside of just being laid off? What people are looking for? What have you seen from a job seeker standpoint?
In the beginning of the pandemic, it was obviously people getting laid off and furloughed and not knowing what to do and what their next move was going to be. And again, as things have stabilized, people have really been using this work from home opportunity, those that are able to reevaluate where they see themselves in the real estate market. So are they enjoying being a property manager? Are they enjoying working in a co-working space? Whatever that niche is that they're in, they have the time and the flexibility now to dig deep and to really see where they want to be. So a lot of it's curiosity. That being said, in real estate, there wasn't the amount of people that were looking for a new role and really aggressive about it. It really wasn't as intense as some other industries because buildings were still there. Buildings are there. You need property managers. You need resident managers. These people were boots on the ground. So there's been a lot more of a passive approach across the board. And then those that have gotten laid off, the administrators and some different levels, they really did take that opportunity to just get out there and to see what else they could do, where they can use their skill set.
Yeah, I think you bring up an interesting point about the tangible nature of real estate, right? Like, again, everyone freaks out because people can't pay their rent, companies aren't in the office. Those buildings are still there, and those buildings still need to be operated. And it's not like, listen, I haven't put on a dress shirt aside from this show, and believe me, 10 minutes after the show's over, I'm back in a t-shirt and enjoying my relaxing attire here at home. So yeah, the dress shirt market overnight could get crushed because no one's buying dress shirts, or something like that could really. But real estate's there. It's operating. People are living in these properties. Retail companies are operating in these properties.
I mean, even the office buildings during the peak of everything, even though there were not many people, if at all, going in and out of these buildings, the buildings still have mechanicals. There's still things that are going on. So they really needed people there. So really, the people looking are either in a bad situation and they really need to get out there and find something new, or it's just people that see what's out there and now their curiosity is piqued and they have that time and the opportunity to have these conversations that they never once had before.
Okay, good. So we talk about the general landscape, right? There, to all those people watching out there who are terrified of being in the real estate industry, should they change paths? Take to heart what Alexis is sharing. She works in this world every day, and not only in recruiting, but 18 years of seeing several market cycles. So listen to that. So there are jobs out there. So from speaking about what you shared with why people are looking and why a lot of people seem to be exploring, let's flip it to hiring managers. For hiring managers that are watching this show right now, thinking about, how do I actually get somebody to my company? They've been searching for weeks. No one seems to want to move. No one wants to risk it. No one's going to go from one company to another. What advice do you have for hiring managers knowing what candidates are looking for that might make them a little more attractive?
So there's a lot more competition in terms of the jobs that are out there as compared to the amount of people that are actively looking. The people are taking a more passive approach. So for the people that are seeking solid talent, you have to have a good interviewing schedule. You can't just make it, kind of at whim, depending on the person. You really need to have a system because people are going to get, I don't want to say turned off, but there's other companies out there that will have a more fluid system, and they're going to be drawn to that because they'll see that as a sign of what the corporate culture is going to look like.
Right.
So really set up what your interview process is going to look like. Have a good onboarding process as well. Remote onboarding is really hard. A lot of companies are back in the offices now, but have an understanding. How many days are you going to need to be in the office? How many days are you going to be working from home? And don't hide that, share that, because that definitely is a positive for people that are looking. I get a lot of people coming to me asking me, is there remote work available? How often do I have to be in the office? Whether it's, a fear of an uptick in COVID or just getting comfortable working from home, they really want to know what the future corporate culture is going to look like. So have an understanding and have that ready to go. In real estate, we deal with a lot of legacy landlords and people that have existed for hundreds of years throughout the city. And there's a lot of, for lack of a better term, old school mentalities when it comes to what a work schedule and a work week should look like. What I've seen during the pandemic is a lot of these legacy landlords were forced to be flexible. They were forced to create a remote schedule. Otherwise, they would have to shut down all operations completely. So they were forced to create a remote schedule and really modernize themselves. And companies need to really strongly consider making that their new norm, because that's something that a lot of the competitors are doing. So really, it's flexibility, communicating, talking to your team. Don't keep people in the dark. Let them know what's going on. Communicate with people that you want to hire and bring on board, and just be more fluid.
Yeah. So in terms of the old school mentality, it's funny you bring that up. And listen, there are plenty of real estate companies out there who are more progressive, but it is almost comical. I deal with a lot of these emerging growth companies in technology. And it's so funny when I speak to the companies that I work with, and they're thinking about maybe July 2021. Mm-hmm. Everyone can work anywhere in the country until then, as long as they're willing to be open on East Coast hours. They may not do until 2022. And then I speak to you, and you have a client that, they're 3 days a week now, but as long as everything's clear in 2 weeks, they need everybody back 5 days a week. Mm-hmm. So to your point, there's a very antiquated legacy kind of mindset there that really, from what you shared, one of the biggest reasons people are looking is to have that flexibility when their company isn't. So if you can offer that and their company can't, that's ultimate supply and demand right there.
Exactly, 100%. You took the words right out of my mouth with that. Yeah, you have to be flexible and not be afraid. If you have a good product and you have a good core structure to your company and to your buildings, and you really know your KPIs, what you should expect out of your team members and the people that are coming in to work with you, the work can be done for the most part, again, depending on the role, but it can be done remote with some flexibility, especially with technology today.
Yeah, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here. Okay. So at Advice, when this all happened, we went remote, right? We got our office back to a good enough place where we could trickle in. You're doing a fantastic job, not to make you blush on live television here in front of millions around the world. If I told you tomorrow that we are mandating 5 days a week back in the office because that's what a work week is, and we need you back 5 days a week in the office, could you see yourself sticking with Advice? Just
you're not gonna. I could see myself sticking with Advice because it is a good enough corporate culture that a dialogue could be had. And if I have the number, if I'm meeting my metrics and my KPIs, and I could say, this is what I've been able to do on a remote basis, it's really a kind of a win-win argument on both accounts. There's no problem with going in sporadically, weekly meetings, twice a week, 3 times a week, but now it's just, there's no reason.
Yeah, and my point again is not to make anyone uncomfortable, but to really, if you're doing a great job, and real estate is the one industry that I think is struggling so much with this, someone needs to break that barrier. And if you're the first company to break that mold and you become known that this company is progressive, they let people work from home, but they still have a great portfolio, they're successful, people are going to be flocking to your company. So be the first, not the last, to make that change, because that seems to be, from what you shared, one of the most common things people are looking for in real estate positions that they just can't find.
Exactly. And you're going to get that top talent, the people that are not actively applying to job ads. They're not, sending out blind emails. These are people who you've had your eyes on for years as you've seen them grow within the industry, and that's what you're going to be able to attract.
Awesome. All right. So then lastly, and again, for anyone watching, if you have questions, if you're looking for a job in real estate, if you're looking to hire in real estate, use the comment box to check in. You have Alexis here with over 20 years in real estate across both the operating side of a business as well as in recruiting. So use this forum. We're going to get to some of those questions at the end of the show. So lastly, Alexis, as this whole thing has transpired, are there certain, if there's people out there that are trying to make themselves more marketable, right? And maybe they worked in an area of real estate that has been more drastically impacted. They don't see as many jobs posted now because of COVID. Are there certain skills that you're seeing or certain exposure experiences that seem to be most in demand right now that people can work to build on or get exposure to?
Yeah, during how long have we been in this? 7 months now? 6? I don't even know. But during this whole time, I've really been acting more as an advisor than a traditional recruiter, because I have had a lot of people, whether laid off or just thinking of their next move, come to me and ask me how they can better position themselves to initially look good on paper, right? Because that's the first thing that somebody's going to see. You have to have, and I'll get to the real answer to that question in a second, Kevin, but you have to have an updated LinkedIn. You have to have a good picture. You have to have a good bio and really just good touch points on your LinkedIn to make you searchable and to make you more attractive on paper at first glance. Get your resume in order. You have to sell yourself on your resume so that people are going to see what your initial skill set is. I have been doing resume reviews, resume write-ups, just working with candidates to help them really tweak everything and get themselves more marketable. And then those that are in that position where they need to do something new and they need a new role, a couple of things. Don't be afraid to find a temp job. I know we had Jules on a while ago. There's nothing wrong with getting in a temp role. You never know if it can go permanent. We've had a lot of that on our staffing side. We've seen temp to perm without even knowing it was going to go perm. And being in a temp role will give you exposure to a lot of different areas, whether it's affordable housing. It'll give you exposure to different softwares, MRI, Yardi, MDS, things that you don't necessarily have courses that you can take, but being in a temp role, you'll be living in that system. So then you can speak more confidently about that. When you're searching and you're looking for a new position, target companies. Don't just apply to any ad because you see a dollar amount. Really target companies that you are following, that you like their core values, you like what their growth patterns look like, you like what they have to offer, and see who you know in those companies. Look on LinkedIn. What are your mutual connections? Who's out there? Who can you talk to? Because all of that will really help you and make yourself, again, more marketable. And you want to seem serious to the people on the hiring end. If they see that you're applying for 7 or 8 different jobs that really don't fit your skill sets, it'll look desperate. And you want to have a targeted search for yourself and partner with a recruiter, partner with an advisor, just be out there. But take continuing education courses. Go to a real estate school, take property management courses, do Excel courses, whatever you feel you can be stronger in, it's only going to help you in the long run.
Yeah, and it's great advice for anyone out there, especially trying to make that transition. I mean, to build on top of that, right? One last question. And again, if you have questions, please throw them in. We want to make sure we get to those before we wrap up the show. But last thing, right? So if picture that you could go back in time, right? And you always had a passion for real estate. And for anybody that's really starting to think about where they could develop the skills to set themselves up for the most logical career path based on where we're at, right? I think about if I could go back in time, I love tech, I would be an engineer, right? All these developers that get hired at all these companies, it's unbelievable. So for someone that loves real estate, right? From an ignorant standpoint, I see like commercial office, who knows what's going to happen with office, luxury residential, or people really putting out $6,000 a month to live in a nice high-rise apartment in the middle of Manhattan during the pandemic. So if someone's sitting there saying like, I have a chance to focus my path towards one area of real estate, where do you see the industry going in terms of the most popular jobs that we're going to see in the New York real estate market? And that way, you know, I want the audience to kind of know where they can zone in on.
I mean, I left my crystal ball in the office, so I can't say for 100%, but on the residential side, affordable housing. I mean, that the affordable housing market for new development, for leasing, and I'm talking not just, you know, project-based Section 8, I'm talking low-income housing tax credit, properties built with a tax abatement. You know, that's what's about.
421A.
Yeah.
Love the 421A. I think I have 7 years left. That's the only reason I know that code. Great regulation by the government.
Yes. But, you know, that's what we're seeing a lot of the activity in. We're seeing an uptick for anything within the affordable housing space. Even on the accounting side, my partner and I are seeing a ton of that. Leasing, you know, leasing's a scary world right now because a lot of people who are, as we call it, street agents, you know, out there not doing on-site leasing, they're struggling and they want to get into an on-site leasing capacity. As these new buildings are being built and things are opening up, we're seeing an uptick in that as well. But really, it's affordable housing on the residential side that in my opinion is going to be the most sustainable. On a brokerage side, we're seeing a lot of luxury properties flying off the shelves. As odd as that might be, you wouldn't think someone wants to spend the $8,000-$10,000 a month. We're getting a lot of activity there. And then the commercial side, I've said it forever, co-working spaces, that's really going to be it. You know, it's definitely less of a commitment. You don't need to sign a traditional 5, 10, 15-year lease. You sign for an office space or two and really just have your space, be away from other people, and use it as you need to.
Yeah, and you would never want to be away from other people. I mean, you're a people.
No,
going through.
I love people.
So, all right. So for those listening, takeaways here, if you have the luxury of being able to position yourself towards a certain area, affordable housing, getting those regulations, getting exposure to that stuff. If you're on the commercial side, try to get yourself exposed to that co-working kind of model. And that should set you up for a much more marketable path going forward. All right. So with that said, I want to get to a few questions before we wrap up, and then we'll close out for the week. But Sean has a question. Any advice for an experienced EA in New York City, has over 14 years of experience, but doesn't have any real estate background and looking to break into that industry as an EA?
I mean, Kevin, you can help me out here as well. EAs have a certain set of skills that not a lot of people have. And if you have the right company who is willing to look at a skill set, not necessarily your background, you'll be able to get your foot in the door. You might need to start off in a slightly more junior capacity, you know, because when you think of executive assistant, depending on what level you're supporting, they might really need somebody that has that hands-on knowledge of real estate and speaks that language, but at a slightly more junior level, or again, depending on the type of company and who you're supporting, you could get in there because you have those intangible skills and then start learning the language of real estate and become more, I don't want to say valuable, but work your way up to a higher level.
Yeah, 100%. Sean, I think a few things here. So number one, Alexis put it great, right? EA is a very translatable skill set. If you're great at that role, theoretically, you should be able to translate that experience to support any executive. So what I would say, a twofold. One, focus on applying for EA roles that support more of a corporate type of professional versus a property management professional, because there are EAs that support heads of property management, and they're likely going to look for somebody who has more exposure to the day-to-day business of a real estate operation. Whereas if you're supporting an executive or a finance head or whatever it might be, that might be a little more general to break your foot into the real estate industry. And two, is have a story prepared for why real estate. A big concern for a lot of companies, especially with an EA, you become a very vested member of the person's operation. They trust you, you see around corners, you know certain habits and traits, and you're essentially an extension of each other. So one of the fears is, are you just kind of going for anything? You say you want real estate, but do you really? So you need to have a story prepared for why real estate. Was it something you were always passionate about? Do you believe in the industry? Do you have knowledge in certain areas that you think could really be leveraged better? Have that story ready. So if you focus on those two things, I think that transition cross industry should be a little bit easier for you to navigate. All right. So unless we have any other questions, Alexis, I think this was extremely valuable. I am happy to hear at least that as a homeowner, New York City is not dead and is not empty, and that we will still have a future from what you're sharing. So you seem pretty confident that there will be opportunities out there.
And Brooklyn's on fire, Kev. So you're set for now.
All right. Well, that's good to hear. Thank everyone for tuning in. As always, keep the comments coming. If you're watching this after the live, you miss out on the excitement of live energy. But even still, throw your comments. We'll get those notifications throughout the week or forever, and we'll comment back. Alexis will be sure to check those if she can give any advice. Alexis is tagged to that post. Again, 20 years in real estate as an advisor, helping candidates navigate a job search, helping clients hire better and smarter. So reach out to Alexis if you have any questions or there's anything she can do. Been able to work wonders from what I've seen so far in the real estate operation.
Thank you.
And in terms of the hunt, thank you for coming in for another episode. Donnie says hello. I wanted to get his voice heard. But everyone have a great rest of the week, a great weekend, and we'll be back next week with another episode of The Hunt. Yes, I got it. Thank you guys so much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye.
All right.